students get through high school and they reach college. Because I think more than ever, we are going to see universities scrambling to have the kind of courses for students to address their remedial needs.
When when you're talking about moving up growth, for example, I think one of the answers that unions or teachers give us is, well, not every student's going to show the same growth level, and there's a certain truth to that. However, what you're looking at, you have the history of a student, and you can see that maybe they're growing a half a grade a year or whatever else, based on many factors, including learning styles, including special ed issues, if that's the issue. But to just out and out say that we can't use that growth measurement is an affront to the kids, because we're there to find out, to get them to the next level and to make them productive citizens. And one way to measure that is, as you said, is growth. And it's probably the best measurement of all of them. So I understand, and I completely agree with what you're saying. The question is, how do we get teachers to come along with us?
Well, I don't think the teachers union speaks for teachers. The latest statistics we've had on their membership suggests that only around 17% of North Carolina's teachers are members of the North Carolina Association of Educators. If you think about it, we have over 101,000 teachers, and that means that only around 17,000 are active members of the teachers union. Now, if you read the newspaper, if you watch TV, you will see that the go-to interview is to the North Carolina Association of Educators, and they are always depicted as being the spokespeople for the teaching profession. The truth is they are not. The vast majority of North Carolina teachers are not members, and therefore they really don't have a voice at this point, because the teachers union has gone so far afield politically and ideologically that I very seriously doubt that the typical teacher shares many of the views that the teachers unions hold, even on non-education issues. If you looked at the parent organization of the North Carolina Association of Educators, this is the National Education Association, you will see pro-abortion messages, you will see diversity, equity, inclusion focus. You will see opponents, they are opponents of school choice. They don't represent the mainstream teacher. They represent the fringe, and that's why their membership has dropped so much. And that's why we don't know what the typical teacher is really trying to say about these major issues. But I do want to bring up something, and I think it's important that we talk about this. It's something called the Teacher Working Conditions Survey. And I think I have some fascinating things related to Brunswick County, related to what our teachers are telling us about some of the needs that exist in the Brunswick County schools.
Go ahead, go for it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, first, let me talk a little bit about the Teacher Working Conditions Survey. This survey is given to all teachers in the state, and it is administered every 2 years. And the last release of the Teacher Working Conditions Survey was in 2022. So just a few months ago, we got the results for the entire state. And remarkably, their response rate is off the charts, is over 90%. So most teachers in North Carolina will take the Teacher Working Conditions Survey. And this survey asks teachers about a number of issues: time, resources, student conduct, safety, leadership, and equity. I looked at the Brunswick County Schools results, and I looked at it for each individual school. And here is the most fascinating tidbit. The percentage of teachers that agree that efforts are made to minimize the amount of routine paperwork statewide was about 65%. So around 35% of teachers across the state think that they get too much paperwork. In Brunswick County, 54% of teachers believe they have too much paperwork. It is an astounding difference that fewer than 50% of Brunswick County teachers believe that there are efforts made to minimize paperwork. This is absolute, and I've seen a lot of gaps in responses between district and state, but this is just screaming out to administrators to really start thinking about how much paperwork are you requiring of teachers, and how much is that paperwork taking away from the essential classroom duties that we give to those teachers. Too much paperwork in Brunswick County.
Now, when you say paperwork, can you be a little specific?
I believe that the paperwork that's being referred to here is paperwork that goes beyond what we typically require teachers to document regarding students. So every teacher is required to document students' performance, their attendance, and other factors. But typically what happens is administrators, both at the district level and the school level, sometimes require teachers to complete paperwork about students that really don't benefit their work in the classroom. Extra evaluations, and it could be about the student level. It could be paperwork related to their subject area team, their grade level team. It is just screaming out for an administrator to start taking seriously this glaring finding that teachers in Brunswick County are complaining about paperwork. I have two other findings that I will to bring up that are crucially important as well.
Okay, before you move on to that, Dr. Terry, hold on a minute. We need to pay a few bills. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with Dr. Stoops and with some fascinating data. So hang on, people.
Absolutely.
That's surprising.
Veteran Awareness sponsored by You Are Not Alone. Today's veteran homeless rate is approximately 19,750, and the numbers are declining because of the various veteran programs. If you or a veteran you know is homeless, please call 877-4AID-VET. This is a confidential and toll-free call. From this veteran to other veterans, please be there to help our brother and sister veterans. Again, the number is 1-877-424-3838. And thank you for your service.
This show is also sponsored by Dr. Tony Maglione. Dr. Tony is a cardiologist practicing in Wilmington. He accepts Medicare patients, and his office is located across the street from New Hanover Regional Medical Center at 2032 17th Street. The office number is 202-1071. Dr. Tony is an author whose last book is Rules for Conservative Patriots, and it can be purchased on Amazon. His website is www.drtonymag.com.
The Boiling Spring Lakes Motel, located at 2 North Shore, is a peaceful and convenient place to stay. Newly renovated rooms with a comfortable back porch welcomes everyone. Discount rates are available to those who might need more time. Close to the beach, everything you need for a fun vacation. Call Stephanie at 910-845-2893. Boiling Spring Lakes Motel. Folks, you must visit Angie's Fresh Produce. 4447 Long Beach Road, Southport. Beautiful fresh produce at a great price. Angie's has just about every vegetable you want. In-store shopping and pickup, and all wheelchair accessible. Call Angie's Fresh Produce at 910-477-9068.
We are rocking and rolling tonight here on All Things Brunswick. And we have a great show going on. And Dr. Terry Stoops is with us, and he's in the process of giving us some interesting data on teachers' answers to some questions that deal directly with Brunswick County and how we are different and against national and state rules, and sometimes for the better, and in some cases not so good, as we just had. So, Terry, back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you could tell, I get excited talking about this stuff. So sorry that I ran into the break a little bit there, but this
You're
by the
fine.
way, this survey is available to anyone. If they just look up teacher working conditions survey, they will find the results. Very user-friendly website that can provide all the district, state, and local data that a person could want to see. And I will, after I talk about these other two district-wide issues, I will talk about one of the schools in Brunswick County that I think everyone should be concerned about. The other two areas that teachers were really concerned about were the reliability and speed of the internet connections in schools. So while most teachers in the district were satisfied with the reliability and speed of internet connections, it was a lower percentage than the statewide average. And so it suggests to me that there are schools that are struggling with this issue. Now, the great news about this is that the North Carolina General Assembly has focused on ensuring that all schools have high-speed internet connections. There are tremendous state-level grants that are available to districts that they can tap to ensure that their internet connections are sound. So given how much the internet's used at a school, I could understand some teachers being frustrated that there are unreliable or slow internet connections. So the other area that teachers are concerned about is student behavior. And I can't stress this enough because this is a statewide issue. We hear so many claims about teachers are discontent with the classroom because of compensation. And I don't think compensation is where it needs to be. I think there are ways that we can improve the way we pay teachers and staff at our schools. But if you look at the one thing that teachers are united in their complaints about, it's student following the codes of conduct. And in Brunswick County, only around 50% of teachers say that students at their school follow the rules of conduct. You can imagine how difficult it is for any teacher, whether they're in Brunswick County or in any other county, to be able to deliver a lesson if the students are not following the rules, and if the administrators are not enforcing those rules in a way that students understand that there are repercussions for their actions. Now, when the lieutenant governor mentioned this issue of student behavior at a meeting of the General Assembly, he was mocked by some. And some argued that, well, he might be right, but maybe there's nothing we can do about it. But what the lieutenant governor was doing was raising everyone's awareness of the issue of student conduct and just what kind of effect it has on the classroom, on test scores, on teacher morale, on teacher recruiting, etc. So we need to think seriously as a state, as schools, as districts, what we can do to ensure that students are following the rules of conduct and those rules are enforced in a fair and uniform way. Absolutely essential that we start talking about that as a state. I probably I can hear the amens from teachers that are listening, because for too long, the teachers' unions and others have only been focusing on compensation issues and not on this issue of student conduct. And one of the reasons why is because they don't want student conduct rules enforced uniformly. In fact, they have supported efforts to discipline students of certain racial and ethnic minority groups less than students in other racial and ethnic minority groups.
You're kidding.
No,
How is
this
that?
really started during the Obama administration with a Dear Colleague letter that essentially told districts that they risk being penalized by the federal government if they
He's right.
disproportionately punished certain students. And the Biden
Wow.
administration is on board with that Obama era rule.
Unbelievable.
And he's not wrong with that. And they actually look, for example, I'm an educator. I've worked in New York and North Carolina. And you get to a certain point where if you have to exclude a student from school, you start worrying about the numbers. And you have to find
Wow.
alternatives. Not that it's not the right thing to do. It's a matter of meeting certain expectations that you're going to get in a lot of trouble for if you don't go the right way with it. So I understand what he's saying. He's absolutely correct
Yes.
that we're shortchanging everybody. We're shortchanging the kids who are going to have
Mhm.
part of their education taken away from them.
Right.
We're also shortchanging those very kids that needed to be disciplined and straightened out because they're getting the message they can do what they want.
Well, and let's face it, it starts at home. We have an issue. We definitely have an issue, and it's not just statewide. Our values, discipline at home, rules, regulations, everything has been kind of thrown to the wayside as far as I'm concerned. And so therefore, it's not only the child that's suffering, it is the entire school, it's the entire community, it's the entire state. And I don't know what the answer is to that. However, I think that principal, pay, politics, and pandemic, which was an Stoops, kind of hits the nail on the head. Would you care to comment on that?
Well, one thing that we have noticed is that after the pandemic, students' development socially and emotionally has been stunted a little bit. And teachers are reporting, and by the way, my wife is a middle school teacher, but teachers are finding that their students emotionally are behind just like they are academically.
Right.
That the students are behaving they're behaving in ways of younger students. And this is a serious problem that a lot of teachers are encountering in our classrooms, is that there is a legitimate issue there with the development trajectory of our students. And I think everyone recognizes it as being a problem. I don't think that there's a good grasp on how to handle that problem.
No.
I don't know that we are going to find a state level solution, but I think there is a strong argument to be made that this is where the local community needs to step in, because not everything is going to be solved by the Department of Public Instruction in Raleigh or Washington, D.C., and the Department of Education, or even the central office of our school districts. We are going
Right.
to have to think about this in terms of community expectations and community norms that go beyond the school building, as you say, and that go beyond the reach of government. Unfortunately, so many people believe that the answers to our problems lie in government, or lie in government providing more funding to certain things, that they have lost sight of the fact that they have a responsibility at home and in their neighborhoods to change it themselves.
You took
Absolutely
the word
right.
out of my mouth. One of the things I've preached
Mhm.
for years is the word responsibility.
Mhm.
And that's a responsibility of parents. It's a responsibility of students. It's a responsibility of teachers and everybody else. And if you go back to that old line, it takes a village. Everybody needs to be involved and held accountable and
Yes.
responsible for the education of our future.
Dr. Stoops, your opinion on who exactly inspired this takeover or whatever you might call it? Was it the pandemic?
Well, I mean, the pandemic certainly played an outsized role, an unexpected role. The ideological takeover of our schools started decades before, in the early 20th century. When you look at the idea that schools should provide students every single thing that society wants them to do, wants everything that society expects them to be. That's found in the progressive educators and the progressive reformers in the early 20th century that expected the school to be a transformative institution. Prior to that, everyone saw the school as an important institution. It was a school. The school building was essentially an extension of the community, an extension of the family. But I don't think there was any expectation in the 19th century, the 18th century, that the school assume all the responsibility for training the child in every single aspect of their life. That started to change in the early 20th century, where a group of reformers believed that our public schools were institutions where we could get kids to believe the right things and act the right way. Now, it just so happens that they wanted them to believe everything that they believed, and they wanted them to act in ways that they found consistent. But this belief, this American, and it is very unique to America, belief that our public schools are institutions that are responsible for every aspect of the child's rearing, essentially, is something that we really, as a nation, need to separate ourselves from. I don't know that there's any easy way to do that, but the fact that we are in the situation that we are in now, and that we have outsized, and some would say unreasonable, expectations of our public schools, is something that is historically embedded in the United States starting in the 20th century. And we need to start seeing the school as an important but ancillary institution, rather than the institution that's somehow saving democracy. Because our public schools, we didn't have compulsory attendance in public schools through the 19th century, and yet our democracy survived. The idea that democracy will die if we don't have strong public schools, I think, is a real mistake, and is a real misreading of the history of the United States.
Right. Do you believe that the parent in this day and age puts the responsibility on the teacher at a higher level than ever before?
Well, I think anytime you give a parent the opportunity to outsource their responsibilities, they will do that. And we have told parents that they can outsource their responsibilities to the school, and the school will take care of it. I think that is a terrible, terrible policy. And yet schools are constantly talking about, and people that are public school advocates are talking about, the fact that we need more money for school counselors, for school psychologists, for school social workers, for feeding students. They really envision the public school as taking care of every component of a child's needs. And any parent, any rational parent, is going to let them, because it means that they have less responsibility imposed on them.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I think you might agree with other issues. To solve this problem is going to take a long time, because we actually have to go back and start retraining the teachers the way they've been taught, because they're being taught exactly what you're talking about, and they're imparting that to the kids. So until we change how we instruct our teachers and other higher level programs out there, we're not going to change much.
Well, I think that is a really important discussion.
Yeah.
I don't know that we're in a position anymore to trust our schools of education. And I always thought that it was possible to reform schools of education and teacher training institutes and colleges in a way that was really beneficial to our public schools. And yet, these teacher training programs are really just training teachers to adhere to a very fringe ideological perspective and expecting those teachers to impart that perspective on students independent of what is actually taught in the classroom. So we have the option. We can either go through schools of education or we could go around them. And while I think it's important to push schools of education to continue to embrace reform and embrace the scientific knowledge that we have about the best way to teach kids certain subjects, particularly reading, I'm increasingly of the opinion that we need to go around schools of education, and we need to start thinking about pathways for students who graduate from college, for professionals that didn't receive an education degree to enter into the profession, because they were not exposed to some of the nonsense doctrine that we see in many of our schools of education today. They were in the workforce and they understand what the workforce needs. And I think that increasingly we need to think about more creative ways of recruiting teachers into the profession. Now, let me just say, and I freely admit that I have 2 degrees from schools of education, from the University of Pittsburgh and from the University of Virginia. And those places were much different when I attended in the late 90s and early 2000s than they are today. And the transformation in just 20 short years has been astounding and appalling, because institutions that used to value the knowledge that students would accumulate in schools have gone full-blown into being ideological training centers representing a fringe philosophy of the far left.
Well, I agree. And if you go back a few years ago, and I also have several education degrees, so I know what you're talking about, and I've been there. But the one thing that I found useful years ago, and they kind of let it die off the vine, there was a program years ago that used to take retired military coming out, in their 30s and their 40s from the military, and they'd get the required courses, and they'd then become our teachers. And they brought a certain knowledge and an appreciation of government and a democracy with them. And I found it very successful, and it's a shame to let it go away.
I agree,
Well,
Bill.
we do have the Troops to Teachers program in North Carolina. And I think one of the things that we need to think about is we need to change the way we pay teachers, because we can't pay professionals and retired military like first-year teachers. We need to think about ways to compensate them for the professionals that they are and for the years that they contributed to private industry or the military.
Dr. Stoops, I know as your position on the Committee for Charter Schools must certainly tell us that you have some favoritism towards charter schools. And I myself believe that there should be school choice. Can you tell us how many counties in North Carolina have that school choice?
Well, technically, all counties have school choice in the sense that we have 2 virtual charter schools, and these are full-time online charter schools that students from any county can access. As far as brick and mortar charter schools, I believe at last count, and I'm not entirely confident about this, around 3/4 of our county students had readily accessible charter schools near them. Now, one of the things to note about charter schools, just like private schools, is that a student can cross a county boundary. So just because a charter school is in Brunswick County or New Hanover County doesn't mean the student needs to live in the county where that charter school is. So we have lots of students where they don't have a charter school in their county, but they're able to travel to a charter school that is in an adjacent county, or sometimes even several counties over, if they're desperate enough for that type of school choice. Right now in North Carolina, around 23% of North Carolina students are in schools of choice. That is, they're in public charter schools, private schools, or home schools. And North Carolina, as a percentage of its student population, has one of the largest, if not the largest, homeschool population in the nation. So we are a place where homeschooling has absolutely exploded. And it continues to increase in really astounding ways, because homeschooling isn't what it used to be. With being able to access the kind of things, the materials and instruction that you can access online, with so many people in the homeschool community offering classes in co-ops and other types of organizations, homeschooling really is a community. It's not just a person homeschooling their child 5 days a week at the kitchen table. These are true communities. So we are seeing a tremendous growth in charter schools, in homeschools, and private schools in North Carolina. And our charter school sector continues to increase. And right now, the Charter School Advisory Board, in which I serve on, is considering new applicants. We have well over 200 charter schools in North Carolina, with dozens of people applying every year to receive a charter from the State Board of Education. Not everyone gets a charter. Not everyone is granted the ability to start a charter school, but we have very, very high standards in who gets a charter. But those charter schools that we have in North Carolina, including the 2 in Brunswick County, I think we are all very proud of.
Great. Do you think we have a teacher shortage in our state?
That is an absolutely fantastic question, because I have debated individuals on television about this issue, individuals that have insisted that we have a teacher shortage. Now, let me be clear. There are areas in North Carolina that we actually do have shortages of teachers, particularly in math, science, and special education. We have had shortages in those areas for decades. So it should be of no surprise to anyone that we have a shortage of teachers in those areas. We have a shortage of teachers in certain geographic areas where it's difficult to recruit teachers to rural communities that may insist on wherever they locate have the kind of amenities that they would like to see. There are reports of shortages in states across the nation, including states that have compensation way above what North Carolina has. New Jersey, New York has reported shortages, especially in the math and science areas. So we are seeing scattered reports of shortages that are really a nationwide phenomenon that many people believe is due to the retirements during the pandemic and the inability of our schools of education to be able to address. So I think the short answer is, in some places, in some subjects, we are seeing shortages. I wouldn't call it a crisis. And we do not have good data right now, and we will not have good data about our vacancy rates until February. So any reports that you've heard about the number of teachers and the number of vacancies in our public schools is very preliminary data, and is data collected by special interest organizations or others that really isn't looking at the statewide numbers and being able to compare that to past vacancy rates. It's important to put that all in perspective.
Right.
Let me ask you a quick question as we're getting close on time. What are your thoughts about the effectiveness of the Opportunity Scholarship Program that the General Assembly's been running for a number of years?
Well, judging from the number of students attending these private schools using opportunity scholarships, and again, this is a voucher program for low-income children. It has been attacked since its inception by the Democrats and the liberals in North Carolina, that seem to really object to giving low-income students the ability to take state money and a minimal amount of state money at that to the private school of their choice. We know that it's effective because the demand for opportunity scholarships continues to increase. We know that there are individuals that are pushing the opportunity scholarship program to take the state tests. And I think it's a terrible idea. I don't want private schools to have to take state tests. Most private schools administer the types of tests, like the Iowa Test of Basic Skills, that I want the state to adopt. So I think the private schools got it right when it comes to testing, and that our public schools need to move closer to the way that our private schools test our students. But we're seeing tremendous growth in the opportunity scholarships, and we're hearing about tremendous, not only parental satisfaction, but these private schools are absolutely satisfied with a program that's helped them bring a diverse student body to their schools and allow schools to increase the types of curriculum and extracurricular activities that they provide because of the revenue stream. I think it's been an enormous success that right now is threatened by a lawsuit that was filed in part by the North Carolina Association of Educators. That's how much they dislike school choice. And in my mind, that's how much they want to see low-income children have their vouchers taken away, that they would file a lawsuit trying to torpedo this much-beloved program.
Gosh. I would... it's hard to say this and believe it, but we've gone through almost our hour.
And I have so many more questions for him.
There is a question for you that I ask all our visitors. It has absolutely nothing to do with your background or whatever else, but it probably gives a lot of consternation to people. So I'm going to have some fun with it. Tell me something about you that nobody knows.
Something about me that nobody knows. We're getting into some personal territory, but that's okay.
I can tell you why you're thinking. We know the lieutenant governor likes to go to visit real train yards and do that. We know we've had judges here that can do poetry and they play in certain instruments and whatever else. So what's there about you that nobody knows?
Something about me that nobody knows. This is actually pretty relevant. One of the reasons why I went into education is because my parents didn't care about it at all. My mother never graduated from high school. My father had a high school diploma, and that was it. He worked in steel mills. And, the fact that I've been able to get as far as I have, given that my parents had absolutely no interest in my education, saved $0 for me for college, really just motivates me more. And I really understand what's at stake for our kids. So if you want to know what kind of environment I grew up in, it's an environment that didn't care about education at all and really provided very little for my own education. And I'm really proud to be able to overcome those barriers. And I think any student, whether they were a working class kid like me or someone that is in any sort of situation, can overcome what circumstances they are handed in their life and become successful.
Well, Dr. Stoops, we get to thank you because we've reached that part of the show where we got to close down. But I want to encourage you, when you're ready and you have that new data coming out with comparison with the states, would you give us a call and come on back on with us? Because this was a fascinating hour.
Yes.
We had a great time. Yes. And I thank you for joining us, and don't be a stranger.
I have so many more questions for you. Thank you so much.
All right, we got to pay a few more bills, TK. But thank you for being with us, Dr. Stoops. Thank you.
Thank you.
This show is also sponsored by Dr. Tony Maglione. Dr. Tony is a cardiologist practicing in Wilmington. He accepts Medicare patients, and his office is located across the street from New Hanover Regional Medical Center at 2032 17th Street. The office number is 202-1071. Dr. Tony is an author whose last book is Rules for Conservative Patriots, and it can be purchased on Amazon. His website is www.drtony.com. drtonymag.com.
The Boiling Spring Lakes Motel, located at 2 North Shore, is a peaceful and convenient place to stay. Newly renovated rooms with a comfortable back porch welcomes everyone. Discount rates are available to those who might need more time. Close to the beach, everything you need for a fun vacation. Call Stephanie at 910-845-2893. Boiling Spring Lakes Motel.
Veteran Awareness sponsored by You Are Not Alone. Today's veteran homeless rate is approximately 19,750, and the numbers are declining because of the various veteran programs. If you or a veteran you know is homeless, please call 877-4AID-VET. This is a confidential and toll-free call. From this veteran to other veterans, please be there to help our brother and sister veterans. Again, the number is 1-877-424-3838. And thank you for your service.
Marine Service Pro and the Tackle Box Seafood, located at 8210 River Road, Southport, is open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, with the Tackle Box open Monday through Saturday, 7 to 6. Marine Service Pro is a full Suzuki and Tohatsu dealership. They deal in pre-owned boats, full service and repair, with certified technicians in all engines, and fiberglass specialists. The Tackle Box offers fresh local seafood, live bait, a tackle shop, and fish packing and shipping. They also offer a full-service U-Haul dealership. Spend time with Leon or Jenny for one-stop shopping at Marine Service Pro and the Tackle Box Seafood, 8210 River Road, Southport. Folks, you must visit Angie's Fresh Produce, 4447 Long Beach Road, Southport. Beautiful fresh produce at a great price. Angie's has just about every vegetable you want. In-store shopping and pickup, and all wheelchair accessible. Call Angie's Fresh Produce at 910-477-9068.
I am not quite sure how we're ending with that, and I'm afraid. But anyway, people, it's 7 o'clock, and we've got to sign off. There's a very special show next week with our state treasurer that Mary and crew will be talking to. I'll be away for a little bit, get some family things to deal with. But I think the world-famous Lehman will be filling in for me, so you probably won't miss me at all. But anyway, thank you, Mary.
And Dan will be back.
And Dan hopefully will return. So.
Yep. Good night, folks. See you next week.
And that's all, folks.
You're tuned in to the Big Talker Network, Wilmington, North Carolina's premier internet station for news and talk radio programming. Find us online at Big Talk.